So, Jordan, as somebody who's been behind some of the most profitable online communities, what's the biggest mistake that you're seeing people make with communities today?
Yeah, one of the most common mistakes that people are making is confusing the community for the offer. And they're saying, just join this community for marketers and it's $99 a month, thinking that's enough. And that's actually a really bad offer. So the big aha is that the community is not the offer, it is the vehicle to deliver that offer. And then following on to that is there's actually not one type of community offer, there's actually four. And so when people don't realize that, they might select the wrong one unknowingly and then go down a path that's going to set them up for a lot of problems in the future.
And we're definitely going to be diving deep into those four different types of communities. I've known Jordan for a little while here. He is fantastic. So excited to have you on the Marketing Minds podcast. He's a paid online community creation expert and strategist, and he has helped some of the biggest and most profitable online communities online. People like Ali Abdaal, Justin Welsh, David Gerhardt, just to name a few. He has all of these incredible strategies for how to craft amazing communities that, again, like he's saying, actually they themselves have that transformational element. So it's not just selling that, it's having that be a piece of the overall process. So I'm so excited to have you here on the podcast, Jordan, founder and CEO of Growth Community. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, Ulrich. Great to be here.
Awesome. So you mentioned the four different types of communities. Do you mind breaking those down, what those are, what they look like, and what might be the right type for different people?
Yeah, sure. So what we've realized, we've built almost 100 communities at this point, and they really break down into these four different categories. So if you could imagine a 2x2 kind of matrix in front of you, you have a couple different axes. So going vertical, we have price. So we have very low cost communities at the bottom, the whole $10 a month type of thing, and then very high priced at the top, anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 or more. And then across the bottom, going left to right, you have structure or expectations. And so what I mean by that is the very low structure is like, hey, join this community for marketers. You don't really know what you're going to get out of it. There's no clear promise or transformation. But then all the way on the other extreme, you have these very structured programs, almost, like these cohorts. Hey, in 90 days, you are going to achieve X. And so when you get those two factors combined, that's what gives you the four different types. And so if we start on the low price and low structure, that's what we call peer communities. And that's the thing that most people are really familiar with, right? And so Exit 5 is a great example of that from Dave Gerhardt. It's a community for B2B marketers. And his tagline is, because nobody goes to school for B2B marketing. And so it's this place where you can go, you're going to meet a lot of other people in the industry. There's going to be some good conversations. And what we did with Dave was also help structure that community so that there were things like templates and resources and swipe files and all this extra stuff that wasn't just dependent on him or on the other members of the community. Because if you go in and ask a question and then nobody answers it, you're not really getting any value. So that's a low ticket community where you're going to need to put in some time to figure out what are you going to get out of that, right? If you go up the scale, if you stay on that peer connection side of things and you go up to a higher price point, say like $1,000 a month, that's usually something like a mastermind, where again, you don't know exactly what you're going to get out of it, but you're probably going to meet a higher caliber, higher quality person who's more advanced, more successful in that career field. And by virtue of that, they're going to help unlock some things in your life, whether it's some wisdom that is shared or a connection, a door that gets opened as part of that. But again, it's a little unclear, uncertain. What am I really going to get out of this? So it requires a little bit of a leap of faith. And for that reason, I think they're not the best first offer for people out there. So if you have an audience and you're trying to decide what type of community should I launch, those connection style communities either require you having a really large audience or require a high level of trust. And so what I recommend a lot of times is to start on the other side of the matrix, which is the more structured side. We call it the curriculum side. So if we were to zoom out, there's two major value drivers. There's the connection and the curriculum of communities. And so we just spoke about the connection side. Over on the curriculum, If you go back down to the low price side, that's where you have something like community powered courses. So most of us have taken dozens and dozens of online courses in our day, and most of us haven't finished most of those courses, but we bought them because they sounded like a great idea. And the reality is you can get really good information, but it's really hard to implement all by yourself, right? You log into the website, there's no one there to support you, there's no accountability. And so the new evolution of courses is putting them inside of a community, and it unlocks a lot more value without really having to increase the price that much. So that's what we call community powered courses. And then going up to the final type of community, we call them transformational communities. So it's the highest ticket, anywhere from $2,000 to $20,000, and it's the highest structure. And a lot of times these are cohort-based programs, group coaching programs, and there is a clear and specific outcome, like grow your business from 6 to 7 figures, or launch your first business, or learn some tangible thing and implement it. And that's really the biggest difference here. Is it's not about the learning side as much as it is the implementation side. And so they're going to support you heavily. There's going to be a coach or a facilitator or someone that's going to make sure that you don't get stuck and is going to help you get that result. So they typically have the highest success rate of all of the different types. So as you can see, there's a lot of different ways you can go. And if you haven't thought through it before, maybe some light bulbs are going off. And for people who maybe have an online community that might be struggling, sometimes it's because they accidentally selected the wrong model and think, hey, I want to switch that, because based on how much you charge and what you're promising people, you're going to attract a certain type of customer. So you just want to make sure that all those things are in alignment with you and with your goals.
And that's actually a really great segue into my next question, which is, how do people choose the right one? Because there's different types of people. So there could be an online creator, maybe on YouTube, they've got a lot of followers. I know you work with people like that. Maybe they're a coach or an expert. Maybe they're just looking to launch their first community. They're really passionate about something. How would people determine the best community model for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So most people don't have really large audiences like some of the people we've mentioned earlier. That's why we know of them, because they have such a big audience. A lot of us are their followers. And for those people, it is easier for them to be successful because they have so many people that they only need a small percentage of those followers to purchase their community. And most of us don't have that yet. So with a smaller audience, what I recommend is, I'm a big fan of going higher ticket first. And a lot of people think you have to work your way up to that, but it's actually not true. You can come right out of the gate with a $2,000, $5,000, even $10,000 program if you can nail a specific pain point or problem that someone has, and you can show them that you can solve it. And so, for example, we actually launched a cohort recently of our Done With You program. So we have largely worked one-on-one with clients as I've done for you. And even you and I have chatted about this a lot, of how do we pivot this and get more scale by doing things with a hybrid model, a Done With You model. And so we launched our cohort at $10,000 and we sold it out with 5 people. And so I would call that a transformational type of community program, where there was a very clear promise, which was launch your own paid community in the next 90 days. With our guidance and our frameworks, and it's worked really, really well. And so we didn't have to start with, a $100 a month thing and then $1,000 thing and eventually get to the 10,000. We called out a very specific outcome for a very specific type of audience, and then we sold straight into that. So for people that don't have a huge audience, I would suggest that. If you are a YouTuber or a creator and you do have a larger audience and you don't want to necessarily be creating a deep curriculum, which can be a heavy lift, maybe you just want to bring people together around a topic or around a subject matter, then you could go more of that peer-to-peer connection type community. And that could be the $10 to $100 a month type of community. The only thing to be aware of is you'll be dealing with a different problem. And that problem is really around churn and retention. And so you need to make sure that you have a strategy in place where you're constantly adding value so people don't come in and then leave after a month or two.
Absolutely. We're gonna talk a little bit more about the churn side of things in a second, because I know that you've got a lot of great strategies and tips around that. I think one thing that I've seen, and I'm curious if you've seen this and what the solution is that people kind of, that are maybe struggling with their community or process, or kind of falling into one camp or the other, where either they have, like you said, they have a big audience, right? Maybe on YouTube, but they don't necessarily have that curriculum. So they have people in a place, but there's not really a lot of structure. Or on the other side, they have that amazing curriculum, but maybe they just don't have a way to bring everybody together and create that community. So I actually like to talk about both of those. Let's start with the latter, and then we can get back to the other one. But with those businesses, I think this is even more common that I've seen. Let's say they have a coaching program, or they have something that they're doing, and they want to put people into a community. We'll talk about platforms to use for communities, and we'll get into all of that shortly. But let's say they put people together into a community, but they just don't have people posting or engaging or connecting with each other. What would be the advice you'd give to that person?
Yeah. So on the transformational side, and really this is a great question because it gets to the heart of communities, which is engagement. That's the thing that everyone's asking about is I want my community to be more engaging, or I feel like there's not enough engagement going on. And it's really a tricky topic because there's not one metric that is actually engagement. I would say it's a compounded formula of lots of different things going on. And so on the curriculum side of things, on that more transformation based, I'm not actually as concerned about engagement inside of those communities, because the most important thing is that the members are taking action in the real world and they're actually implementing what they're learning. So what we've seen is a hierarchy of engagement or value in these programs. And usually the thing that's most highly attended and valued are the live events, right? And so when you're doing live coaching or Q&As or hot seats or any of that stuff, that is what people are going to prioritize. You might be putting things in the community like, hey, share your win of the week, and nobody's doing it. Or is anybody stuck and nobody's answering? And so what we like to do is actually measure engagement both externally or visibly, like the types of posts and comments people are doing, and also behind the scenes engagement. So what I mean by that is we survey our clients on a regular basis. So we're checking in with them. We're asking them to give us a score, like an NPS score of how their experience is in the program. What are the most valuable things they're getting out of it? Where do they feel stuck? And do they feel on track, off track, falling behind? So that we can actually reach out and help them and make sure they're successful. And so what we've seen is some of our students are very, very successful at getting the transformation, but they're almost invisible inside the community. So we're all busy, and depending on the type of market that you work with, if you're working with entrepreneurs or some other very busy people, they might only show up to those live calls and then they're doing everything else invisibly behind the scenes. So if you don't have a mechanism for checking in on them, you just don't know what's going on. So we like to make sure that our people, have a green light behind the scenes. And if they do, then we're actually okay with seeing that lower engagement.
That's good. I think a lot of people will be really reassured by hearing that as well, because I know that's one of the things that people see. But at the same time, you need to make sure, like you're saying, that you're tracking all these different things. And I'm sure I know that leads into the prevention of churn. We'll dive deeper into that, shortly. But before we get into that, let's talk about the other side, because I know this is also something where you've had a big experience working with people that have big brands, whether it's on YouTube or other places. But, what have you found is the best way for somebody who has built a brand, but maybe they haven't really launched a course or a community before or something like this? What's the best way to kind of take that intellectual property, that information that they have, the value that they have, and put it into this community structure so that it actually provides value? Because I think similarly, right, the people on this side, what they run into is, maybe not having the perceived value on the inside that they want to offer. So what's your strategy on that side?
Yeah, it's similar to the transformation in terms of you want to have a specific reason for being. Why does this community exist? What is its ultimate goal? What is it helping you to achieve? So one of the common trends that I'm seeing is for these connection-based communities that are not built upon a single curriculum, like Exit 5 is a good example, is what they're actually providing is they're providing a shortcut maybe in your career, in networking, in gaining access to certain materials that aren't always structured materials. But for example, let's say you are the only marketer at your company, right? Maybe you're in kind of a small, mid-sized company, you're responsible for marketing, and you're responsible for coming up with all the genius ideas, all the strategy, all the planning, all the analytics, right? That's a heavy lift, heavy burden. So you can go into that community and you can find that people have shared different templates, different resources, different ideas of campaigns and ads that work really, really well. So you're going in there and you're getting a shortcut. Instead of you having to come up with all of that on your own, staring at a blank page on your computer, you can go in there and get that. And another thing that you want to think about from engagement is it's really a chain of events. So what I mean is if people are coming into the community with the wrong expectation of what they're going to get, it's going to be really hard to fulfill on that expectation. And so once people realize that this is not a valuable use of their time, that they're not going to get what they thought they were going to get when they signed up, then they're going to disengage. And it's going to be very, very hard to bring people back. So a lot of times people ask me, how do I reactivate a dead community or a community that's kind of gone stale or quiet? And that's a really hard thing to do because I think as humans, we do value first impressions, right? And so first impressions matter. So that starts all the way in your marketing. When you say, hey, I'm launching a community for this type of person so that we can help you do X, Y, Z. So that needs to be in alignment. And then every touch point after that, from the sign up to the onboarding to some of the posts that they see, they need to be furthering that mission and they need to be in alignment. You don't want them coming in feeling confused, feeling like, oh man, I signed up for the wrong thing. This is actually not for me. That's going to really kill your engagement. So we like to think about what is the first moment of value after somebody joins that would really solidify their perception of the community and them solidifying the feeling that they made a great decision by signing up for this and being a part of this community. So how can you engineer to get them to that first moment of value as quickly as possible?
I love that. I love that. And definitely that first moment of value, that first impression being everything. That actually leads into the next question I was going to ask is about the onboarding. Because I know you have a specific process behind that. So I'd love to dive a little bit deeper. What is that core onboarding process that gets people to that first piece of value that gives them the best impression when they join a community?
Yeah. So for us, we like to really think deeply about the first 30-day experience of that new member. But to zoom in more, it's even that first 1 day, that first 1 hour, like as soon as they pay and now they're in the community, what happens next? And for a lot of people, they just get dumped in some giant pool full of people and stuff. And it's like, welcome, figure it out, and that's an overwhelming experience. And that's typically not going to be putting your best foot forward in your customer's eyes. It might give them the reaction of, oh, wow, there's a lot of stuff here. I don't know if I have time right now to figure all this out. Maybe I'll come back later. I'll come back this weekend and check this out. And that is not the first reaction that you want someone to have, because a lot of times I'll come back later turns into I'll come back never. They just never get back around to it. So it can really be an engagement killer. So for us, we've thought a lot about that onboarding experience, and we take people through a structured step-by-step onboarding where immediately when they come in, they get put into a special onboarding area of the community, and they see a quick video, usually under 2 or 3 minutes, welcoming them, reassuring them, confirming that they made the right decision, that they're going to get lots of value. And now let me show you how to get the value. And then the following steps will do 2 major things. The first thing is it will teach you where to go in the community to get the things that they were promised during the marketing and sales phase. So here's where you can go to ask questions. Here's where you can go get on the live calls, all of that kind of stuff. And then the second thing is showing them how to actually take advantage of the platform itself, the technology. Here's how you can, for example, we use Circle, and one of the things I really like about it is you can customize your notifications so that you only get notified about the stuff that you care about and you never get bothered about the stuff that you're not interested in. And what that does is it allows people to really prioritize those notifications, because I think we've all been on that newsletter before. We've had that app that just bothers us too much, and then eventually you just unsubscribe from all of it. And so we want to avoid people unsubscribing from all of our notifications, because then they're one step closer to disengaging. So we take them through all of those different steps to make sure that they understand how to get the most out of your specific community, and then how to use the technology to its fullest potential.
Absolutely. That's great. And actually, I want to dive deeper in just a second into the platform and Circle. I know you have so much in that side of things, but also what platforms you recommend, who should choose what platform. But before we get into that, kind of going hand in hand with having a proper onboarding is also talking about how to reduce churn. And you gave some examples, right, of doing, some of these reports and check-ins on the current members that you have. But what are some of the biggest reasons you've seen people churn? And then how do you mitigate those and fix those to keep people?
So the biggest contributor to churn, I would say, is a misalignment with pricing and charging frequency to the value and the transformation. So what I mean by that is a lot of people have a program that it might take 3 to 6 months or even 6 to 12 months to truly realize the value from it. So it doesn't make sense to charge someone on a every month basis. So every 30 days, they're getting charged for something that they're not actually getting the value from yet because they still have many more months to go. So in that case, we like to or suggest that our clients push their billing frequencies much farther out in the future, like every 6 months, quarterly, or even annual. And a lot of people, the thing I really like about annual, especially instead of monthly pricing, is that with annual, you're only asking someone to make one decision one time. And it's basically, here's the purpose or the promise of this community. We're going to help you go from here to here. And this is how much it costs. Are you in? And they only have to decide one time, okay, yes, I'm in. And now I'm committed to getting that transformation. So that becomes their sole focus, is just participating and getting the value, not every single month. Do you still want to be in? Do you still want to be in? And that's just not the type of environment that we want to create. So by essentially removing churn from the equation is the best way to reduce churn, in my opinion. But for some communities, it just doesn't make sense to go straight to the annual. So I would say other things that you can do would be just creating a clear schedule and programming of what is coming in the future so that people aren't feeling like the community is neglected or passive. They want to feel like the leaders are pouring in more value. So it's like, hey, next month we're going to have an expert masterclass with XYZ coming in. You don't want to miss that. And it's like, oh, that does sound really interesting. Actually, I'm not going to cancel now. I don't want to miss that. And so I think as long as you have an intentional schedule and future vision for where the community is going and the types of value that you're going to be bringing in, it's going to make people a lot more excited to want to stick around and see that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense with, the frequency and then also the value, the time to value, looking at all these different things. And when it comes to the different platforms, because you mentioned, of course, Circle, I know you're a big advocate of Circle, and we use Circle as well. And there's so many benefits there. But also I know that you are more than just, an individual platform. You're really here to help people with community, whatever platform they're using, and also help them find the best platform. So it's the first question. I do want to dive into some advanced Circle strategies because I know you have those. So we'll dive into that in a second. But before we get into that, how do you pick the right platform? What platforms do you recommend for different purposes? There's a lot of platforms out there. How do you pick the platforms, and what are some of your favorites for different things?
Yeah, it's a really common question. I see it all the time. And it's fun to watch the trends that are happening in the industry, because a lot of times people are asking, like, a couple of years ago, it was Mighty versus Circle, and then Slack versus Circle, and School, right? Like all of them is just, there's a new one popping up every quarter, it seems like. So the most common things that people go to straight away is, should I just be on a free platform that everyone is already on? Basically Facebook groups, Slack, these kinds of things. Those are a bit more community platforms, if you will. They're kind of free social media-y. The other option that people think about a lot is, should I be on a WhatsApp group or a Telegram group or those kinds of things? To me, those are not community platforms. Those are just group chat tools. And I think those tools serve a great purpose. I'm in some great channels or, little groups with people. They're very easy to use, but I think they're very surface level. So they don't go very deep. You can't really put resources in there. You're not going to have a course, or you're not going to have a bunch of PDFs inside of a WhatsApp group. And then same with Slack and Facebook groups, is they're not really community platforms, and you can't customize them. So if you are serious about running a paid community, I think it is much more important to nail your offer and your value proposition than to get hung up on which technology platform you should use. Because the technology platform, I like to say, is not going to make your community successful, but it can break the community. And so what I mean by that is, there are some tools and platforms that are just not designed for a paid community experience. Like, one thing that a lot of people have realized by running communities on Slack for a very long time, maybe a year or so ago, Slack recently changed their pricing and said, for Slack communities or Slack instances of over X amount of people, we're going to start charging you $8 a month. Well, that is not a feasible pricing strategy for anyone running a community with any large number of members. It becomes ridiculous. I had someone reach out to me saying, we need to get off Slack ASAP because they want to charge us $100,000 to continue running our community on Slack. And it just doesn't make any sense. So Slack is designed for teams and companies to communicate, not for communities. There's things like School, Circle, Mighty Networks, all of those. I think in some ways it comes down to personal preference, honestly. They have different look and feel, different features, different teams that are running those community or those platforms behind the scenes. And one thing I really like about Circle that I haven't seen on any of the other platforms is that you can run multiple offers, multiple tiers, multiple communities all in one place. So things like School are very simple and minimalist and easy to get up and running very, very quickly, but they lack some of the more powerful customization features. So I've seen people who run like a lower ticket school and a higher ticket school. They have to be completely separate accounts. Whereas in Circle, it can all be in one place, and it can actually allow you to easily upgrade or downgrade between those things. So I think you just want to look at the amount of customization and professionalism that you want to put into your community. And when you're charging a high ticket amount, I think it's doing your customers a disservice to use some type of free app like a Facebook group or something else like that, because you're saying, hey, I'm willing to charge you, $10,000 to be in this thing, but I'm not willing to pay for my own software and customize it and make it really, really professional and easy to use. I'm a big fan of using the right tool for the right job.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of different pros and cons and benefits to different things. I think similar to you, we found a lot of great elements to Circle, but also I know a lot of people that really love School and love some of the other platforms. And a lot of people still do Facebook groups, things like that. One thing that's also interesting too, is it seems like different platforms, there's pros and cons to it being really accessible to see other things. Like on Facebook, people can get really distracted, but it's also there where if they're checking it every day. On School, you have the benefit, especially if you have a free community, of people discovering you. But if you have a paid community, people can discover other people, versus, yes, on Circle, you have all your different communities there on the side for convenience. But at the same time, you're not necessarily discovering new ones or getting distracted. So I think there's a lot of things there. Is there any other kind of pros and cons that you'd kind of add? I added just that one little bit because it's something that I noticed. I'm curious if you've noticed that too, but then anything else you want to kind of add while we're on the topic of platforms?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there are a lot of trade-offs for each one. Again, I wouldn't get too hung up on trying to make the perfect decision, and it is possible to move. We've moved a lot of people between different platforms. I see that it seems like each of the platforms tend to carve out a bit of a niche in the industry amongst certain demographics and certain groups. Like, for example, I didn't even mention, but a lot of people have used Discord to build communities. Discord typically attracts younger people, gamers, crypto, AI, like those types of niches. For some reason, all tend to go towards Discord. Circle tends to attract coaches, courses, more professional creators, I would say. And so they all have a bit of a different niche. I see School attracting a lot of people who are getting started, a lot of online, make money online type of opportunities. Of course, they have a little bit of everything, but I just see certain demographics that are really moving towards these different platforms.
Exactly, which is interesting to look at too. And still on the platform topic, and then I've got some questions around AI and a few other things that I know we're excited to dive into. But still on this topic of Circle specifically, because I know specifically, and you help people with all kinds of different platforms, and really it's about the community. But I also know that you are a wizard when it comes to Circle. So what are some, advanced tactics, strategies, things that work well that Circle can do, tricks of the trade that you've learned, anything you can kind of share on that side?
Yeah. One of the things I love are the Circle workflows and automations. So anyone who's used things like Zapier, they know how powerful it is to be able to integrate your different tech stack and tools together. And so we've done some pretty crazy integrations and customizations with Circle. We've even built a lot of third-party apps and integrated things. Like, for example, one of the things Circle doesn't do are multi-seat purchases. So what I mean by that is it's designed for a single user to come and buy their membership for themselves. But a lot of our clients have said, hey, we sell to companies, we sell to teams. We want one person to come in and buy 10 licenses or 100 licenses, So we've been able to use things like Airtable and Zapier and integrate it with Circle to basically automate and make that whole thing really, really easy. And that's unlocked a ton of revenue and value for our clients, who then can sell a lot more clients at scale. So there's those kinds of things. The Circle workflow and automation is really, really nice for managing the community and interacting with members. When members achieve something, they finish a course, they can receive a message from you congratulating them. They can receive a badge. They can get an announcement in the community. So a lot of things can happen that can help to automate the operations and the engagement side. And then you mentioned AI. Circle is really going deep on the AI side, and they've released their AI agents. And I've been really impressed with that. So we've actually loaded in our course and a lot of proprietary knowledge and information and content we've created. And so our AI agent is able to respond on our behalf. And it's incredible because it can point people straight to a lesson or to a post or to a resource. And so when I'm asleep, people can still get an immediate response and get straight to the answer that they're after. It's really cool how they're integrating it and making it very native inside the community.
Yeah, that's great. We started experimenting with that, but it's kind of funny. The team didn't even tell me until it was up and running. So I just logged in. I'm like, wait a second, what is this? Ask AI. And, it's just kind of like, Alric AI bot responding to that. And it's good. It's good. So it's really interesting. And actually that blends right into this next question, which is, about AI. How do you see that affecting communities? Of course, you mentioned AI within Circle. Are there other AI tools you use or recommend? What are you seeing right now with AI?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something we're thinking about a lot. I'm using AI personally as a strategic thought partner. So I'm giving it a persona of like a strategist, a business consultant, analyst, and I'm interacting back and forth to have it ask me good questions, for it to help sharpen my thinking, to expose things that I've not yet considered, poke holes in my strategies and ideas. And I find that not many people are using it that way yet. They're using it more on that generative side of like, write me an email about this or write a post. And that's all great stuff. That's low hanging fruit that I think you can use straight away. I like to give AI as much context and information as possible. So I give it my courses, I give it my podcast, all the transcripts. I've been giving it my meetings. I use Fathom in my Zoom meetings. And so when we do our group coaching calls or one-on-one or sales calls, I'm giving it all that information. And then I'm able to prompt it and say, what are the biggest challenges and questions that people have related to building communities? And it'll just summarize and give the list. Great. Let's start creating some posts or some content or prompts around that. So that's one of the ways that we're using it. Where I think that Circle is going with this would be also being able to prompt to say, who are some of my least engaged members in the community, and what are some things I could do to reactivate them? And, let's quickly identify who those people are. Let's send them a personal message, a DM, those kinds of things. Also being able to ask, what's the latest trends inside my community that I'm seeing? What's the sentiment? What are the questions people are asking? What would be some impactful live events that we could throw to spark engagement and continue to add more value? And just being able to get a rich summary, either on demand or on a regular basis from an admin view, almost as a AI community strategist, just letting you know how things are going. Here's a few ideas of things that you could do. So that wouldn't surprise me if that's available in the very near future.
It's gonna be exciting to see, and the fact that they're already rolling out, especially with Circle, these AI features. I'm excited to see what they continue to add. And actually, this kind of leads me into my next question here: is where do you see communities going with AI on the rise, right? And people being able to ask AI for things. I believe that community is going to be far more important now than ever. And I'm sure, you share that belief, but I'm curious what you see with where the future of communities is going to be, let's say the next 3 years, but also as long-term as you want to go. Where do you see communities going? in this future?
It's a great question. And I've been thinking about this a lot of, what are the industries or the things that are not going to be able to be replaced by AI? And at the end of the day, I think human connection is something that we all want and need. And we're seeing that the value on information alone is going to zero or going to very, very low. It's been going this way with human information production on things like YouTube. You can go to YouTube and learn almost anything for free, but now it's sped up even more by being able to just prompt ChatGPT and get an immediate answer that's even detailed and customized to you. But what is not going to be able to be generated from AI is going to be that human to human connection and relationships. So I think having that place of belonging where you can go with other people that are similar to you, we see that people feel more connected and bonded in some of these online communities with people on the other side of the world than they do with anyone in their physical vicinity, with their next door neighbors or with their community or their city. And so depending on who you are in life, entrepreneurs, a lot of us can feel very isolated, disconnected, misunderstood. We're doing this very weird, strange thing and no one else can relate to it. Being in a community of people at a similar level, doing a similar thing, facing similar challenges offers a lot to the human experience in terms of comprehension, compassion, validation, support. Like we go through good times and bad times. And I don't think prompting an AI is going to help you through some of these more human related experiences. And then where it's going is I think it's the blend of online and offline interaction. And so we're spending more and more time on screens and computers, but it's so great, as you and I know, to get face to face and to get to share a meal and share a conversation. And so I think bringing these very niche specific communities together online and then bringing them together in person and having powerful experiences in person just continues to forge those bonds. And again, it's not something that I don't see AI replacing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I completely agree. I think that we're definitely going to go more and more towards that community. And you actually brought up something that kind of brings me to a question I always like to ask everybody on here, and then I know you got some final golden nuggets. We'll also hear how people can find out about you in a second as well. But I always like to ask about kind of the learning lessons, because I'm a big believer the entrepreneur's mindset, and I got the entrepreneur's mindset coin. By the way, I can get you one of these, but it's win on one side, learn on the other. Right. And then underneath, it's like learning is winning. And I'm a big believer that, you either win or learn in the different things that you do. And when you face mistakes or challenges, they're really just learning lessons that you can build on. And so what's an example of a time that you had a mistake or a challenge or something that could have been seen as a failure, but you actually learned from it and it turned into a success? What's an example of a time you can think of like that?
Yeah, I would say it was when I was first putting my course together to teach people how to build community-powered courses. And the whole message in it is that on-demand courses are on the decline, where it's just you inside the LMS trying to change your life. And what people really want are these interactive, supportive, community-powered courses. And the funny thing is, I did it in a way that was basically on demand, old school, watch these videos and figure it out, which is completely against the message that I'm teaching. And because of that misalignment, there was a lot of problems. And I was selling it for a low ticket price, just like all the other online courses. I was basically copying and following the old playbook that I was saying is out of date and no longer works. And so I took that product off the market. I stopped, everyone who bought it, they bought it. But I basically relaunched it in the community powered model that I'm promoting, along with coaching, along with support. And I raised the price up to $10,000. And you would say, oh, for the same thing? Well, no, it's not the same thing, because now you're actually getting that hands-on coaching and that support. And so all of those people who bought the later version were much, much more successful than the people who bought the earlier low ticket DIY. And so I think part of it was just practicing what I preach and realizing that you can charge a lot for the transformation if you actually increase people's likelihood of succeeding in that. So that was a big takeaway for me.
Absolutely. That's a really, really great lesson. I appreciate you sharing that, because I think just as entrepreneurs, we need to hear about, everybody goes through these different learning lessons. That's how we all grow. And so this has been really fantastic, Jordan, everything that you've shared. I know we've jammed a lot about communities, and you have just such a wealth of knowledge here. And we're going to have a final golden nugget or two to wrap up in just a second. So don't go anywhere if you're watching or listening. But where can people go to find you? How can they learn more about what you do, work with you on the community side? Where do you want to send people?
Yeah, I would say check out our website at growthcommunity.co. I also post a lot on LinkedIn, and we put together a free email course to go deeper into those 4 types of communities that I mentioned earlier. And it's going to help walk you through the different strategies, give you examples, the pros and cons of each one to help you make sure that you're starting out on the right foot. So if you want to check that out, you can get that at my website at growthcommunity.co/blueprint.
Awesome. Definitely go there. Lots of value. We'll put all the links down there below. Also, if you're watching, make sure you are subscribed on YouTube. You turn on notifications. And if you're watching on your favorite podcast platform, make sure that you follow us there. And we always appreciate 5-star ratings as well. Good ratings on there. We're looking to climb in those podcast charts as well. But yeah, Jordan, this has been fantastic. What are some final golden nugget or 2 that you want to share with everybody on communities while we wrap up this episode?
Sure. So I would say the biggest difference that I see from the online course world, for example, is in the online course world, you had to build it all before you could sell it. The biggest nugget here is do not do that. Do not go and spend 6 months and build out this whole huge technical community and fill it full of stuff and then see who you can find to buy it. Interview people, get on calls, discover what the problems are, and then build a community, sell those people, and then build the community as you go. You want to get really good at iterating and getting feedback as quickly as possible, and just start with an MVP, start with a V1, turn that into a V2, turn it into a V3, build a flywheel and build momentum, and you're going to be a lot more successful, a lot faster.
I love it. Exactly. Building as you go is a great way to really hit the ground running. So this has been amazing. Thank you so much for being on here, Jordan. We'll put all those links down below. So thanks again for coming on the podcast.
Thanks so much, Alric. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.